Good morning, everyone. Thanks ever so much for joining us. So I'm Lou. Some of you know me already, and it's so lovely to see some really regular faces. We've got a great session today. It's only 45 minutes, no more. So please don't, it's very informal. We like to make sure everyone feels that they can be as open as they want to, or they can just listen and learn. So we will be recording the session. However, what we typically do is obviously edit any PII or any sensitive information out of it, and we just share it as a sort of discussion forum thereafter. So we'll share the link with you after that. So this morning we're going to be adding to our series of which we've had many topics over the years. This one is all about how to amplify your influence in meetings. And obviously we've got Susan O'Connor to share that with you. I'm Lou, for those of you who don't know. I'm our recruitment director at Crimson. So Crimson are both a technology solutions organisation. We have huge experience working within the Microsoft technology stack as an IT solution provider. But my role is to provide specialist IT recruitment and CIO search services. So I've got a fabulous team who deliver perm tech, contract tech, and also CIO search recruitment to UK-wide customers. We've been established for many years now as a group, as a company, sorry, and we're part of actually the Nash Squared group, who some of you may know in IT leadership space as the old Harvey Nash group, who were sort of rebranded a few years ago on the back of acquiring the likes of Crimson, Spinks, Talent IT, Flex House, etc. So we operate still within the group with a recruitment arm, but Crimson is very much kind of a sort of bespoke brand within the group, so to speak, very much working alongside our technology solutions partners and thus having quite a strong network as well. But as you can see there, Nash Squared is a leading provider of global technology and talent solutions. So glad to connect you with anyone you'd like of our colleagues within the group as much as my team. So Women in Tech, get to the main agenda. So we started this event as an in-person event, share a glass of wine, have a few nibbles, bit of antipasti. Laura, I think, and some others on the call now have been with us throughout the series, and we like to have this forum as a way of just creating a real safe space for female and male colleagues to join should they wish to, because the topics very much are for IT women, IT leaders, women who have really helped others sort of understand their journeys and share some of the trials and tribulations of being a woman within the IT space. There's no judgment. We have really open discussions. We like to just share ideas and approaches, and some of the topics we've covered, such as menopause, imposter syndrome, how to influence board meetings, etc, have all really helped, hopefully, along the way. People just feel they're not alone. They may have had times in their career where they felt they really needed to reinvent themselves or reset, if you like, and this is all about how you can really, I think a colleague of ours the other week, Vanessa Isles, shared that she applied that stealth mode to her career and really became that everything to everyone, really built her portfolio of skills around that way. And so the experiences we've had with our guest speakers in the past have hopefully helped a lot of you just learn some hints and tips along the way, and like I said, just really not feel you're alone when you may be going through a particularly difficult time, or you just need a bit of inspiration really as to how to find solutions and how to best set yourself up for the next phase of your career. But more importantly, we like to have fun and meet others. So the whole purpose of today is to really enhance your network. Hopefully, if there's a few of you who are sharing your vanity URL, you might want to just sort of really touch base with some of those people you meet on the call today. So without further ado, I've got Susan O'Connor with me, CEO and founder of Shift Left Limited, leadership coaching, and I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to pop it over to you, Suze. Just before I do that though, if any of you want to raise their hands with any questions, please do. Obviously, like I said, we've got the chat function there for those of you who can access that. We are going to run some polls, but this is a really informal interactive session, so no questions stupid, and I'll be just monitoring those questions along the way and looking for good times to really jump in on some of Suze's hints and tips. Over to you, Suze. I'm going to come off my screen for you and then you can bring your presentation up. Great. Here we are.
And I think I just need to Teams. We practiced this perfectly and it's not come up with the same options this time. Typical.
Don't worry. We can see the screen really well. We can't see you yet in the there you are. We've got you. We've got the live view.
Right.
Thanks.
Hello everybody, and thank you for starting your day with us, because I have worked in the IT industry for many, many years, and I know that actually sometimes when you start the day, you kind of like open your inbox and it's like bedlam, bedlam. So really appreciate that you're coming along to listen to me. Let's hope I make it worth your while. So, as you can see, I'm a certified leadership coach. I trained as a coach quite a few years ago now, alongside working in IT. I am the ex-UK and I operations director for a global pay tech, Worldline UK and I. I'm also the mum of two sons who have sadly left me now and are making their way in the big wide world. Although they do seem to come home quite often. So that's nice. I like that. And I'm really proud to be a catalyst for growth for women in tech and for organisations for their women in tech. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what made me, when I was made redundant 18 months ago, to actually take that dive and to create my own organisation where I could help women and help organisations to support their women to actually fulfil their potential without selling their souls. So today we are going to be talking about some of my experiences that I learnt through some of the most difficult times of my life, which then enabled me to really leverage my presence and my impact in meetings. So we're going to move to a poll straight away. And I would love you to just kind of like, when Holly gets it up and running, just to kind of like tell us a little bit about, do you feel you could have more of an impact in meetings if only you knew how? So I'll give Holly a few moments to get it going because we have to do it quite manually. Apparently Teams likes to just issue it. I have no idea where it's going to come up on my screen.
So we've got that in the chat now, and it's on my screen at the beginning. Maybe because you're presenting, Susan, you can't see it. So at the moment, we've got 30% of responses saying they often feel they could have more impact in meetings if they knew how. And a lot of people, the majority actually, 73% are saying sometimes. So they're aware of the fact that there's opportunity for them to have more of an impact, but maybe don't take that opportunity or don't know how to. So sometimes they know they could have more of an impact in meetings. That's generally the consensus there, 72 to 27%.
Yeah, and it is really interesting, isn't it? Because I know for a long time in my career that I thought I was having a great impact. But it wasn't until certain things came along that I realised, actually, yes, at a certain level I was having an impact, but taking it up a level and having more of an impact in stakeholder senior exec meetings, I wasn't having the impact that I thought I was having. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about what helped me to really learn a few tips and tricks, and I'm going to share that with you. But I'm going to just stop sharing a moment because I much prefer to see you while I'm doing this. So I was a manager and a leader of others, just like many of you are in this audience now. And we just sometimes just don't actually know all the rules and the tricks because we haven't had the same kind of upbringing in tech that maybe our male colleagues do. You know, we've not had those conversations and those networking events that a lot of men connect, and we just don't connect in the same kind of way sometimes. I certainly didn't, because I couldn't really have those conversations about football or rugby or the golf course and all that kind of stuff because, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't interested. But also, I'm a mum, and actually sometimes, you know, you don't want to go to the pub with all the blokes at work because you want to get home and spend some time with your kids, because actually at the end of the day, that's kind of what being a mum's about. So, as someone who spent 30 years working her way to being the UK and I Ops Director for the global pay tech, I actually just utilised one way of working, and that was hard. My key tip at that time, if anybody had asked me, was you just got to work hard. You got to show up, be there all the time, take on everything you can, always volunteer, do as much as you can to be visible, but underneath it all, work hard, and then you will get noticed and you will be respected. What actually happened was that I ended up becoming a bit of a workaholic. Can you ever be a bit of a workaholic? I think you either are or you aren't. I wonder how many of you here, if you are honest with yourself, actually are a bit of a workaholic. I was a sole breadwinner, 2 kids, and really fortunate that my husband always supported my career. And at one point, he ended up being a full-time dad because I was working away a lot and I couldn't manage, childcare and all this sort of stuff. To be perfectly honest, the expense as well, but and actually knowing that the kids were looked after all the time. And over the years, that working hard really did pay off. I was always being given the complex projects, the difficult customers, but I was really aware that I wasn't actually making any progress. And there was one particular moment in my career when I was managing a very high profile program within the organization. And I didn't have much support. My line manager and his line manager were really taking big steps back. And you'll understand why in a moment when I explain some of what was going on. But this project was absolutely key to the organization. It was worth millions. And unfortunately, they had taken too long to make some decisions right at the beginning to even get the budget. It was a 2-year project and they wanted to squeeze it into a year. And it wasn't actually a project, it was a program. And it was essentially to build a new ticketing issuing system for the UK rail industry. Up to this point, the company had had the monopoly of the ticket issuing system on the train. So when you go and buy a ticket on the train, this was one of the systems that we were developing. And it was really important that we actually made a really good solution, because having had 100% of the market, the kit was now out of date. It had to change. There was no choice. It was not supported any longer, and technology had moved anyway. So the pressure on the organisation to actually deliver was really high, and hence that pressure came onto me. Because some of the decisions about making that project work were very much delayed, I ended up being responsible for everything from the delivery of the development, the support services, the actual development of hardware, because we were purchasing bespoke hardware printers to be designed specifically for on the train, even down to how they carry the equipment. But also, I ended up being responsible for all the sales as well, because for some unknown reason, we were not allocated any of the sales team. So in amongst managing all of that, I was also responsible for going out and selling it to the rail operating companies. So as you can imagine, it was a very pressured environment. And I was doing my job, in the best way that I possibly could. But what was going on a daily basis was the fact that one of the senior leaders of the organisation was not coping particularly well with the project and the pressure. And his way of handling his inability to cope was to take it out on me. And I would attend meetings and have to listen to being told that I was stupid, I was crap, I couldn't do the job, why can't you do this? I was sworn at and basically vilified on a daily basis. It was absolutely horrendous, and it pretty much broke me. And it was a point of my career where there was one time when literally, if it hadn't been for my family, I may have not been here now, because it was that bad. Every single meeting I went in, I had to cope with this. And because my fallback solution is always to work hard, that's what I was doing, working hard, working hard. And it was coming to a point where that I was struggling to actually even control myself at work, and just bursting into tears, which just don't do that. It's embarrassing. You don't cry in the office, but it was like the emotional toll on me was so great that, you know, I couldn't control this. It was a really, really rough 12 months. And there was a point where I just was really, really struggling. I just didn't know what else to do. And one of my colleagues, who was always on these meetings with me, and to be honest, he was treated as badly. And he took me aside one day after one of these awful meetings. And we went to a different part of the office to be away from the team so that, you know, we could just have a private conversation. And he sat me down and he said, "It's your ego." And I went, "What? You're allowing your ego to get in the way?" And I'm like, what the heck is he telling me here? And then he started to explain, because he was saying it quite nicely. And I was thinking, what does he mean? My ego's getting in the way. And as he started to explain, he started to say, it's not all about you. But what he meant was everything that was being said in those meetings weren't actually anything to do with me. They were to, oh dear, sorry, I don't know what Teams did then. So, oh dear, that was interesting. That's in fact, I do know why.
Those fireworks were how you felt inside, Susan, when all of a sudden, you know, you just exploded with all that emotion and feeling. But that was very good time, well timed there.
Oh dear. Oh, don't you look? It's a Mac thing that it automatically does this sometimes, but it's really weird. So I've lost my train of thought now, having all those fireworks.
No, but you were literally like, what does he mean? What is he trying to tell you?
Yeah. And as he sat there and he explained to me that our ego, and it's not about, he wasn't saying I was arrogant or anything like that. What he was saying was that I was taking everything on myself, and believing that, you know, what was being said was all about me, and implied and meant that I couldn't do my job. And the moment he started to explain that, the penny started to drop, that I realized that this is quite often what happened for me in a meeting, particularly with senior people, is that they would say things, or I would hear what they say and the tone in which they said it, and immediately think, oh my goodness, I haven't done it right, or I've done something wrong, or I'm no good. And that moment was really transitional for me, because I suddenly realized that I didn't need to feel like that, because actually none of this was about me. It was about that senior leader and where he was in his own head. And I would just like, Holly, if you could start putting up the next poll. I'm really curious as to how other people feel. Do you ever feel like you've done something wrong, or you're doing a bad job based on what is said in meetings? Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Gosh, that was really powerful then, Susan, just that insights into that particular story. So we've got sometimes 75% of people sometimes, so it's kind of an on and off thing. I suppose that's inconsistent, but you know, there's sometimes people feel like they're doing a bad job based on what's said, but maybe are struggling to know whether they are or they aren't based on interpretation, like you say, or feelings. Always someone's actually put forward and said they always feel like that. They're probably in a similar situation to yourself, yourself, Susan, or maybe in a slightly different way, but experiencing that they're always feeling they're doing something wrong based on what's said in meetings, and some people saying often. So we've got people experiencing this across the board. Laura, you've got your hand up. Would you like to jump in and share your
Yeah, I
thoughts?
was just going to say, if you'd written that question, if something goes wrong and you're in a meeting, do you ever feel like it's your, your problem to solve? Then I would have put often or always, actually. So if it's something going wrong, I will always think, what could I have done better? So if that question was written slightly differently, you might have got a higher response, I think, of people saying, because I think
Oh,
as
that
women,
makes sense. So it's
we're
almost
always
like you
looking,
take that responsibility on
yeah,
yourself
exactly.
for when something's going wrong in a meeting. You'll really often feel that you could be doing something better to strive. Do you know what? I feel quite similar, actually. Yeah. No,
and you'll see as I go through this talk, actually what you've just pointed out is the next thing, to be honest. So there's two aspects of this. Is that moment where you kind of like, no matter what was going on, that story in your head is like, oh, have I done it right? Or have I done a good enough job? Are they? And again, it's that, will they find out that I'm rubbish kind of thing? And sometimes we don't even know why it's happening to us, and those feelings. But actually, as I'll carry on in a moment, but it is that no matter what is said, we start to take responsibility, even if it's not our responsibility. Yeah. So, right, so I'll just quickly share, because it's good to have this. So we've just done this one, and this was one of my post-it notes. So it's not all about me. Let go of my ego. And this became kind of the sort of thing that really helped me move up in my career, simply because I found myself going into meetings and just, no matter what was being said, or if some of the behaviors were not how I would like them, that thing in my head would just went, remember, this is just business. This is not personal. And that helped me to just be calm and not have that frantic sense within me that I've got to find a solution. I've got to work out how to do better. I've got to always be looking like I'm perfect. Because actually, what they're saying is more about what's going on in their own head and their own stories than it is about actually my results. Because the results of the program and the projects that I was working on were fine. $1 million, £1 million project, 20k over budget, going through all the change requests legitimately, was pretty damn good, given that it was a 2-year project that was squeezed into a year. So just remembering it's not all about us, bringing that calmness into those meetings is about leveraging your impact, and you'll see in a moment how that actually moves you forward. So this was one major lesson that I learned during that project, but it wasn't the only one. The other learning that I had was also about how I was in meetings. So as just mentioned, I'll stop sharing so I can see you again. As just mentioned by Laura, is that I also found myself in all the stakeholder meetings and all the meetings that, because primarily because of the way that these were really quite toxic meetings, my whole presence in those meetings, I needed to protect everybody else on that project and program. I was the program manager, therefore it was my job to do all the presentation, to answer all the questions, to make sure that nobody else was treated in the same way. What was actually happening was that my voice was the only one that was being heard in these meetings. And therefore, I was becoming the target. And what I actually learnt was that because of that, I was getting all the comments and the having to defend myself and the project and the program and the people on it. But also, I ended up with all the actions. You know, and I'd come out of those meetings and I'd have all the actions, even when I had no influence over some of them. And it was a conversation I had with a friend who had been going through something similar in the organisation she worked with. And she gave me a tip. And again, this was a major sticky note for me, an absolute major sticky note for me. So I'm going to share that with you all, so you can have this as your sticky note. Let me move on. Does it need saying? Does it need saying by me? I think we've got another poll, haven't we? So do you find yourself being the only one talking in a meeting and ending up with all the actions? So if Holly can quickly put that together, I'd love to see what everybody else's experience on this, or whether it was just me. I suspect not, from what Laura was just saying.
I love these sticky notes. I need to get my pad out so I can put them on my screen. Yeah, no, I've gone through a bit of a transition over the last few years of empowering a lot of my team, and it's been fantastic. It's been such a eye opener for me, because I really was that operational, hands-on, do everything, leading as well as coming out with all the actions and being that voice. I struggle. I'm a very much a talker. That's my communication style. So for someone who loves being around people, loves the energy that you get from those interactive meetings, I have had to learn that I need to let others set the way, and so that they can really drive and support in those meetings, like you say, and empowering a leadership team to help me to do that has been a really big turning point for me personally. But I often would have been the one to do that, less so now, but obviously sometimes you just want to get involved, and it's the right thing to do. But yeah, very much kind of came on that journey from often being the person with all of the actions, because I'd spent the whole time discussing everything, sharing everything, getting everyone's opinions, and then I'd be the one sort of taking those actions, possibly because I hadn't delegated and hadn't empowered people to speak up and feel that they could and would own that. So I definitely resonate with this one massively. So at the moment you've got 18% people saying rarely do they find themselves being the only one to talk, 36% saying sometimes, Susan, and we've got 45% of people saying often they feel that they're the only ones talking in a meeting and ending up with all the actions. So resonating with what you've said there.
Yes. So I mean, I know for some women, actually, it can be quite the opposite, that they don't actually talk at all. And maybe there are times when your voice needs to be heard. But then again, in my experience, once I got into a more senior position, I felt expected that I would actually lead from the front. And so what was happening was, I was doing all the talking. I was protecting the team. I was answering the questions. I was defending whatever was going on and explaining and explaining and explaining. And it was when my friend sort of said to me, just pause a moment and think, does it need saying? Does it need saying by me? And what this means is that sometimes in a meeting, no matter what you want to say, if you can just pause a moment and actually ask yourself the question, does it contribute to the meeting for me to point this out? It might be a burning thing that I desperately want to say, or something to defend myself or defend the program, or just because I want that point to come out. But in that meeting, does it actually need saying? And then we take it to the next level. It may actually need to be said, but does it need saying by me? And it was this latter part that actually really resonated with me, because I suddenly realised that I was answering questions that should have been answered by some of the others in the exec or some of the other senior leaders. And in that moment, that awareness that actually I can be in control here, in control of what I say and how I say it, but also I don't have to say anything. And what I found myself doing when I had the sticky note on my monitor, and sometimes I would literally be, my fists would be clenched, trying to stop myself from jumping in to say something. I learned to actually just absorb the silence. And when some of those other leaders did not step up and answer the question or take responsibility for an action, I learned to just go, Fred, this is in your area. Do you have any thoughts? You know, could you contribute? Is this something you could help with? Is this something you can advise with? Literally diverting the topic and the conversation to someone else, because it was forcing them to step up. It was also forcing them to take some of the actions, which was great. But more importantly, it's not all about me holding this program of work up on my own. It was forcing others to actually take responsibility, to have their careers on the line, to actually support the success of this program. And it was at that point that things started to change. We started to get more support. We had actually had a sales team come involved, because the sales director realised he actually needed to step up and do something. He hadn't needed to do it before because I was taking it all on. Now, just because it may be my responsibility overall in terms of the success of the programme, it wasn't actually my responsibility to do everybody's job. Now, this tip, does it need saying by me, is actually really effective in any meeting, doubly so if you're working with stakeholders. And I would always recommend, if you're the sort of person who is always taking on everything because you're responsible, you know, this is your piece of work, it's your team, you know, just to pause a moment and think, actually, is it just all mine? And who do I need to ask for help?
I think I'm just jumping in there, Susan, as well. For me, I think obviously if we apply the RACI model to this analogy, obviously there's, to a certain degree, the word responsible obviously can get diluted quite a lot, can't it? Or can get confused a little bit, because actually in this instance, you know, you may be accountable for that program's success, but actually there are others who are responsible for supporting you to deliver in that. So just sort of touching on your words there, because that's where really recently redefining our target operating model as a team has really helped. A lot of overlaps between my operational risk, compliance risk, and this, that, and the other. And I think getting that clarity is really important, which is what you're highlighting. But it is that part of you as a leader sometimes that takes both the R and the A together, and actually needs to understand how you break that down to make sure that whilst you're accountable for something, and you may well be responsible for it, some parts as well, it's understanding where you need to obviously ensure there is that clarity of delegation for the other piece. Yes, Helen, sorry.
No, that's all right. I was letting you finish. Just had a thought in my mind which I want to say. I kind of I certainly understand what you're saying, what Susie's saying. My problem is often it does need to be said by me, but I can't get the guys to bloody well shut up and let me say it.
Right.
Which is, you know, the complete opposite in a way. And I'm just sitting here going, stop talking, because the problem is this, and I want to take it on, but I don't have a chance to do that. So that's
great insight.
Really different option.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Suze?
So actually my next slide is quite will help you with this completely, and it's bring your queen. So what I learned from the other two aspects, the learnings from that program was, and although I didn't have the language at that time, as a leadership coach now, I have different languages and different ways of bringing things in. But what we need to do in these meetings is to bring our queen. And it's about having that presence in those meetings that enables you to go, hi guys, can you just pause a moment? I really need to share this with you. You really need to hear this because I believe it's really important. But quite often what we find is because they're all talking and you're kind of starting to feel, how am I, and you start to kind of like almost lose some of your presence. But being able to just bring your queen into those meetings. So a queen, if you think of a queen, she's got a great big heavy crown on her head, so her head's up high. She's got a big thick robe on her shoulders, so her shoulders are back. She's very capable. She's very authoritative, but not in a nasty way. But, she knows her vision. She knows her realm. And by bringing that presence in, and it can just, I'm hoping you can sort of see what I'm doing on screen, going from like this to like this, your voice changes, how you feel changes, and that enables you to kind of interrupt that conversation that's going on to really put across your point of view. And we need to bring that presence.
Yeah, no, we could see your movements there. We could see how you were just all of a sudden just getting yourself into that zone. Laura's got a quick question, got a hand up to just follow up on that.
I was just going to say, Helen, a practical thing that I use as I was trying to cajole a group of men to do something or to come to some sort of consensus was to actually own the actions, not necessarily doing them all myself, but writing them up and making sure they were understood. And then that allowed you to say, can we just capture that in the action? And then actually, as you capture what they've said, you can bring your own opinion to bear on the action as well. Because you could say, do you mean this? Or maybe you mean this. And then that you can bring your own view to bear on the conversation then if you're in control of the actions. I found that practical thing that helped me.
Absolutely. And we need to have a lot of those practical things alongside, just because we have got to navigate this situation, because let's be honest, majority of us are in male dominated meetings and our voices are not necessarily as resonant, so we are not heard as much. And we have to make that, we have to put ourselves forward, we have to have that presence, we have to have that ability to just go and go, come on guys, can we come to that consensus? I forget who asked the question first. Does any of this help you?
It was Helen.
Helen.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps in some ways. I find a lot of it is on Teams, and it's harder to project on Teams, and the technology stops it because the technology only allows one person to speak at a time, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, I work in an organization where putting up your hand just gets ignored. No one looks at that. So although I like Laura's idea of writing the minutes, I've done that in the past and become the secretary, and that's not where I want to be. So I'm an engineer, I'm not a secretary. So just trying to find ways around that. I like where you're coming from, Laura, and almost, it's, I want to be secretary's mate, if you see what I mean. It's a minute taker's mate, just to be able to say, hey, just make sure this gets documented. But yeah, I try. But there are people that will. I had a recent case where 3 women on a Teams call were having a great conversation. One person was late to the call. When he joined, he just took over and didn't listen to anything what anyone else has said. He just zoomed into there and spoke for the next 20 minutes. And it was my colleague. I've took him to one side afterwards and told him not to do it again, but it still makes it difficult and challenging at times, you know.
Just thinking of what you've just said there, Helen, as well, from my perspective and experience, there's been times where we've had similar situations, and as a leader, you and with a team, especially having had to navigate, like you say, a number of communications via the pandemic, and then since, now that we're all in this hybrid working, we encourage the team to go in as much as possible for team days for this reason, actually, so that we can sit round together, respect one another, and take it, you know, turns and try and, you know, engage people as much as possible. But that said, I think often finding that meetings are set up without agendas, without a clear direction as to what is going to be discussed, actually requesting an agenda ahead of a meeting or suggesting that that's the courtesy thing to do is a good idea. And also, actually, for me and my experience with colleagues who have struggled to put their voice forward, I often try and encourage them to, you know, in between meetings or when they get opportunity to really try and, you know, talk to colleagues, tell them how they feel, ask if those colleagues can kind of be a bit of a lobbyist and a bit of a kind of supportive voice for them to get into that meeting. And it's not ideal, to your point. I think bringing your queen would be ideal for everybody, but if that's sometimes more difficult because, like you say, of the comms channel, you know, there are other ways you can sort of build that camaraderie and that kind of organized chaos rather than it being chaotic, so to speak. But easier said than done, I know. Susan, I'm just mindful of time, but do you want to crack on, and we'll see if we've got some questions?
I think that's probably about it, really, because like you said, I'm mindful of time. So I mean, any other questions, really?
Oh, well done, Hoss. We've got the poll up now, which is, would bringing your queen into meetings give you more presence and have more of an impact? I mean, it goes without saying to a certain degree, but equally, like Helen said, it's not always easy. Has anyone got any stories they want to share themselves, or any situations as well as the poll? I think everyone's just yeah, so we're sort of saying 100% yes. We recognise that that's going to really help, Susan, but like Helen says, not always as easy. But has anyone got any examples or anything that they do to bring their queen, or to does any of what Susan said resonate with yourselves? I mean, for me, it's simple, right? You know, I just love the fact that Susan's presentation today has just been keep it simple. It's not all about you, and I love the, you know, let go of my ego thing. And I think most of us have felt that we're defending our team, defending ourselves often, and that really resonates with me personally. Has anyone got anything else they want to ask Susan whilst we've got her for a few minutes?
And if anybody ever wants to find out how you can have easy ways of actually just bringing in your queen, so no matter what meeting you're going into, you can quickly prepare yourself so that you feel really empowered, do get in touch and we can have a conversation.
Oh, thanks, Susan. Well, you kindly shared your vanity URL at the beginning. And Joe in my team's just said, actually, yeah, she used to also definitely take on a lot of the actions and really trying not to do that so much now. I think that's one that particularly, you know, we've all experienced at some point or another. But to Laura's point, often you can own the action, but then make sure that you've got people really supporting that and giving opinions, really. I think using open-ended questions and passing the you know, what do you think, this sits in your area. I quite liked the way that you said that, Susan. And again, easier said than done in the moment, but that's something we all need to try more.
And as you practice, and you know, I mean, I can, you know, bring this on in any moment. I mean, you know, if we'd had more time, I was going to share a story of another customer who was very, very tricky, and how literally just by preparing myself and bringing my queen into a meeting, I actually managed to get to wrap him around my little finger, basically. And previously to that, he had behaved so badly that some of my colleagues had gone off sick. So, you know, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
But it's also about us not excusing our presence. We're not hiding ourselves. You know, we have owned our progression in our careers. We can take the space.
Yeah, but those deliberate stepping stones, like you say, and that almost forcing yourself to create that method and structure, whilst it may sometimes feel a little bit forced at the beginning. Like everything, isn't it, practice makes perfect, and actually by repeatedly doing things that you know to be right, and for someone in the audience to then think, oh, okay, Lou's making a real point here, she's really emphasizing what she's trying to get at, that, and then they start to listen. It takes time, doesn't it? It doesn't happen overnight, but that confidence will hopefully prevail through.
Yeah, but just practicing this sort of thing really helps you boost your confidence, because it's a real somatic kind of way of being, rather than it just being in your head.
And Laura kindly, thank you, Susan. Laura's kindly shared a request actually for everyone, slightly different matter, but while she's got an audience of strong IT leaders and women here, she said, can I encourage everyone here to consider putting themselves forwards for the CIO 100? You put in your own application, it closes on Friday, and last year she was only one of 2 women in the top 20 and had a handful of and only a handful in the whole 100. So please put yourselves forward. Let's show that there are lots of amazing women in CIO positions. Well said. Love that. And there's the little link there to the Survey Monkey. Thanks, Laura. That's great. Susan, I'm going to ask everyone to have a fantastic day. And thank you for those of you who have regularly come to our session. There's one more poll here from Holly. How did you find today's session? Was it useful? Very, mostly, somewhat, or not very useful at all? And for me personally, that was absolutely bang on, and has really helped me now think about what I'm going to be doing going forward. Like Susan said, if you want to connect with her, please do. I'm just going to quickly share my screen again for anyone who wants to connect with us. Bear with. Let's have a look. Where have we got? Let's see. Okay, here we go. So we've gone through all of that, and right at the end here we go. If you want to find out more about Crimson on LinkedIn, we've got fantastic jobs that we're sharing at the moment, both senior opportunities. My colleagues Christine and Ian have had a fantastic start to the year with some great new engagements, new roles. We're working on the CTO position for the Motor Neurons Disease Charity, which for me is absolutely phenomenal, given the recent headlines and just topical. It's really brought it to light as how fantastic this organisation is. So we're trying to find a CTO for that at the moment. If you know anyone, please, or if you're interested yourselves, please do let me know. And there's lots and lots of other roles that the team are working on. So whilst it is going to be a difficult year, I think, we've got the election coming up and we've got lots and lots of organisations holding on to their purse strings. There's also a hell of a lot to do. So we're finding that there's a lot of perm requirements and opportunities out there at the moment. But that said, there's also some organisations who are investing in that kind of digital transformation piece as well. So hopefully we can help you, or any of you that are looking for a new role or know someone that may be. And if you'd like to connect with Susan, she'd be glad to expand her network with like-minded people. And thank you ever so much for joining us today. Have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you.